Hello, this is Mrs. Scarple, and in this video I'm going to cover two-way tables. My first slide here is just how do we read a two-way table, and then I will get into finding relative frequencies or finding percents based on data in a table. So the reason this is called a two-way table is because we have two different categories of data that are being compared. So we have the categories of use mouthwash or no mouthwash compared to flossing and not flossing. The totals that you see over here on the right are the totals for the row. So you'll see here that 30 plus 10 will equal 40. 15 plus 45 will equal 60. The totals that you see across the bottom are the totals for each column. 30 plus 15 is 45. 10 plus 45 is 55. And then those totals that we had before, when I add them, give me 100. And the 45 and the 55 also add to give me the 100. So this value that you see in the lower right corner will always represent the total of every response. So the total responses received in the data. So our first question, how many people are included in the data? That's 100. That's our total. That's our overall total of everything. Next question, how many people use floss? So I need to find my floss category, and I look at the total for that category, which is 45. How many people who use mouthwash don't floss? So I'm going to start by looking for my use mouthwash. I'm going to find my don't floss, and where the two of them intersect, that's going to give me my total. So use mouthwash, don't floss is 10. And how many people don't use mouthwash? So again, I find the category no mouthwash, and I find the total for that category, which is 60. So that's how we read a two-way table. Let's now take a look at how can I find some percentages from a two-way table. So what you see here is some data from a survey given in Denver a few years ago, and it is comparing daily fruit and vegetable servings by race. So we have people who identify as African American or Black, people who identified as Hispanic or Latino, and we have people who identified as white. We've also got three categories for the number of servings of fruits and vegetables that they eat in a day. We've got 2 or less servings, 3 to 4 servings, and 5 or more servings. Just like the previous two-way table, I have a total for each row, and I have a total for each column. Now, as I go through my questions here, there's two things I'm going to be looking for, because when we find percents, remember when we find percents, I'm going to make a note of this here. To find a percent, we take the part divided by the total times 100. That's how we calculate all of our percents. Now this part is what part or how much of the total fits what we're looking for. So each time you're given a question, you're going to be able to identify, well, what am I looking for to find my total, and what am I looking for within that total to find my part. So this is where I'm going to do some highlighting. So my first question, what percentage of the respondents represented are white and typically eat 3 or 4 servings of fruits and vegetables daily? Well, that first phrase, what percentage of the respondents represented? That's going to give me or tell me where I need to look for my total. So I need to look at my table. How many respondents were part of this survey? I need to look for the overall total. In this case, that's 556. So that'll be my denominator of my fraction. Then the part that tells me what I need to be looking for to find that value that goes in the numerator. We're looking for the people who are white and typically eat 3 or 4 servings. So I'm actually looking at 2 different kinds of categories, but I need the value that intersects those 2 categories. So white is the third row. 3 to 4 servings is the second column, so I'm looking for third row, second column, and we have 65. So 65 out of 556, and then to convert that to a percent, I'm going to take that times 100. So I'm going to take my calculator, and it's going to be 65 divided by 556 times 100, and then enter. And we're going to round this to the nearest tenth, so to the nearest first decimal place. So we have 11.69. That 9 that follows the 6 is going to round that 6 up to 7. So 11.7% is going to be my answer here. And again, this second phrase that I highlighted is giving me my part. So let's erase the markings that I did on my table for that one. And let's take a look at the second one. Again, I'm going to highlight what I'm looking for the total. So among the people surveyed who identified as African American or Black, that whole phrase, because it says who identified as, that's telling me what I'm looking for my total. Then I look at the next part of that sentence, and it says, what percentage of them typically eat 5 or more servings? So we're looking for 5 or more servings from the total who identify as African American or Black. Let's see if I can make that just a little bit darker for me. So that's going to be our part. So let's take a look. How many people in the survey identified as African American or Black? So I find where my African American or Black category is, and I find the total for that category, which is 102. So that's my denominator. Then I look for the part of that where they eat 5 or more servings. 5 or more servings within that category was 8. So we're going to take 8 and divide it by 102 and multiply it times 100. So again, I'm going to take my calculator. 8 divided by 102 times 100 gives me 7.8, because 8 is followed by a number smaller than 5, 7.8%. And our last one. What percentage of respondents represented who typically eat 2 or less daily servings of fruits and vegetables are Hispanic or Latino. So that first part, percentage of respondents represented who typically eat, I want my other color, so pardon this, I want to make sure my colors match. We're looking for who typically eat 2 or less daily servings. That's going to be our total. Are Hispanic or Latino. That's going to be our part. So let's erase what I had circled for the previous problem. Let's find our total. Again, our total is from 2 or less daily servings. So I find the 2 or less servings category and I find the total for that category. In this case, that's 252. Within that category, how many identified as Hispanic or Latino? So 2 or less servings, Hispanic or Latino is 167. And then again, we're going to multiply that by 100. So we take our calculator one more time here. 167 divided by 252 times 100 equals 66.3%. So on the Unit 1 test, this is what you're going to be expected to be able to do when given a frequency table, is to find what we call relative frequencies. So you'll need to identify where your total is coming from. You'll need to identify where your part is coming from, and you will need to write these expressions to get your answer. And this concludes the video on two-way tables.